guys, welcome to the Preparing for Graduate Studies 101 series. If you've been with us from applying to the interview phase and all the way to the graduate preparing series, congratulations for making it. I'd really love to know if you're a Chevening scholar or, you're just one of those that actually have journeyed with us in as far as the application process and have made it all the way to actually get into university. I want to know, simply because it would be nice to know who actually has journeyed with us all the way till here. And it's one of those things where it just really would be so great to know, because it's been such a long journey. We started doing this last year, and right now we're in August, and I think we had started in September last year, or was it November? Somewhere around there. So this has been quite a long journey to getting here, and it's really just been so amazing journeying with you. My name is Mavis. I am the host for this webinar series 101 session, and I will just basically be facilitating the process. So if you've got any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat, and I'll be interacting and engaging with you the entire time. A little bit about myself. I am a master's student at the University of Sussex, currently pursuing an MA in Globalization, Business and Development. And my passion, in essence, is just being able to pour myself empty and make sure that anything that it is that I know, all the sort of knowledge as well as wisdom that has been imparted into me, I can pay forward. So really, I love to do this. I love to send the ladder back down. It is my passion. It's what I've done most of my adult life. And I absolutely enjoy these types of sessions because it really just allows one to speak into the lives of those that are journeying the path that I have long since crossed. So I only speak on things that I know about and have been taught about. Today's speakers range from Harvard graduates, Cambridge graduates, Aberdeen graduates, Sussex about to be graduates. So they really, really are such a variety of speakers who come with such great wisdom as well as knowledge that they will impart to you today. And I just really want you to be as interactive as possible. The session will only last for 2 hours, and I'll make sure that it only lasts for 2 hours so as to make sure that your attention span is at top notch. And then we'll have a workshop session at the end of this. A workshop session is where you can ask questions so that whatever it is that is not clear to you, or you've got very specific questions that have not been covered in this, you are able to actually make sure that those questions are answered. Please have a look at the program so that perhaps you're interested in questions about sort of preparing your essay writing format, and that comes a bit later, to try not to ask it in a session that does not exactly pertain to that, or alternatively just put them in the chat and then we'll arrange them to make sure that the right speaker answers the right questions. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so if I can just ask the first speaker to kindly put on their camera, and that is Hafeni. And Hafeni will actually do such a great job introducing himself. But just to get the session started, Hafeni and I have known each other for quite some time, actually. And that's about 3 to 4 years, if I'm assuming correctly. And Hafeni and I have worked together in Namibia, but he was one of the very instrumental people in my journey to applying to Chevening. He was so kind as to work me through some of the processes, especially in the application process, what to put into my application, also the interview process, and then eventually me being a successful applicant. So really, he is the man of the hour. Hafeni, I will allow you to introduce yourself and as far as the details of your university as well as professional background, but ultimately he is an absolutely amazing speaker, and I hope you do enjoy his session. Hafeni, the floor is yours.
Thanks for that, Mavis. Good day, everyone. Thank you guys for tuning in. Pleasure to be able to speak about some of my experiences in terms of preparing for grad studies. Aside from what Mavis said, I'm not really a good speaker. Thank you, Mavis, for putting the pressure on. I was a graduate student at the University of Aberdeen in 2019-2020 year, where I did a master's in business administration, majoring in energy management. I since returned to Namibia, and I've been a consultant in the clean energy sector, and that's what I still do till today. But yeah, Mavis, I'm not sure how controlling the slides works. Is it something that I'll have to ask you to do for me, and then and then I just speak. Okay, that's fine. So thanks
If you
again.
would like to take the remote control, that too is possible. I can give that to you.
Let me see if this works. No, I think just control it for me. I'll just ask you to skip on my behalf.
No worries.
All right, great. So yeah, again, welcome everyone. I'm not sure where everyone is tuning in from, but I'm assuming there's probably going to be a couple of different countries represented in this graduate 101 session today. But to kick things off, I'm going to be taking you guys through 4 separate subtopics, all relating to what you need to know or what I wish I knew when I was preparing for graduate studies in the UK. The first topic will be about accommodation, which is very critical. I think not just because you need a home, of course, but then, you know, just perceiving where you're going to be living for the duration of your graduate studies as your home away from home for at least, you know, 12 months. So from there, I'm going to discuss a bit about my experiences or what I would advise with regards to packing. Also how to navigate the transportation system in the UK, as well as some tips on how to best integrate, considering it's such a multinational environment you're probably going to be in. So yeah, with regards to packing, yeah, the main or like governing thought around that is there's a lot that you can live without. And you only really realize this, especially coming from Namibia, which is such a warm and dry country. You only really realize this once you've packed so many summer outfits and only have got to one of them while staying in the UK. In terms of transportation, I must stress the importance of punctuality. And I'll give you guys an example of how being too early didn't really work out for me while I was in London some time ago. The last one with regards to integrating, the governing thought is how I think we all tend to feel like we are loners, or like, you know, we stick out like sore thumbs in terms of, you know, coming from wherever you're coming from, whether it's Ghana, Nigeria, Namibia, Botswana, and stepping into this multinational environment and kind of feeling like, you know, everyone else is kind of fitting in better than you. And, you know, it's a huge fallacy. That isn't true. Everyone else is as confused, anxious, and lost as you are. And that's something that I think new graduate students need to keep in mind when they embark on their studies. All right, Mavis, let's go to the next slide. I'll jump into my tips on accommodation. All right, great. So in terms of preparing for where you're going to stay, I think I was fortunate enough to have gone and done 2 postgraduate qualifications or degrees in the UK. And during my first one, there were a lot of these things that I didn't quite understand. I didn't really know what would be best for me coming from a completely different continent and going to the UK. Is it safer for me to be staying on campus? Is it safer for me to be staying with other people? I wasn't really sure. But one thing I can definitely advise you guys is that wherever you choose to stay, whether it be in campus accommodation or in an off-campus flat, try to make sure that you know, wherever you're choosing to stay is close to not just the campus itself, if you aren't on campus, but then also other amenities. I must stress that your social life is equally as important as your academics. And in some instances, if you don't give that aspect of your graduate studies enough attention, it tends to actually negatively impact your overall experience of being to the UK. So for people who are considering staying off campus, try to, you know, go to websites like I mentioned earlier, like I put a link at the bottom for a website called Uni Lodges. that has multiple different accommodation options across the UK. And they also give you the address of where these buildings are, whether it's a flat complex or something of that nature. And you could always go on Google Maps, sorry, and then kind of just check in terms of proximity, what's the walking distance to the central business area, what's the walking distance to the malls, and it kind of just helps you create this holistic experience in terms of your graduate studies. The next point I think I need to discuss is you need to be prepared to share. Unless you're living in an off-campus, privately owned flat or accommodation, the chances are that a lot of the amenities that you're going to be having, in these I don't want to call them hostels because they aren't always hostels. Sometimes they're like these student flat complexes or blocks of dorms, and you'd find that you'd be sharing quite a bit of the common areas with other students as well. So it depends on the type of person you are. Of course, some people are a bit more open to interactions and mingling and sharing their space with others. For those who aren't, I would advise always getting a better understanding of the structure of these flats. How many rooms are in them, what kind of amenities you're going to be sharing within that flat. Are you guys only sharing your kitchen and living room? Do you have your own private bathroom? All of those kind of things need to be considered. And oftentimes they actually notify you of this on these websites when you're finding your accommodation. You just need to figure out what works for you. And yeah, price, of course, does also play a huge role, because then the more privacy you get, the more you need to pay for it. The next point is, especially for graduate students, I would avoid finding accommodation that's shared with undergrad students, just because, not because they're bad people, don't get me wrong, but then just typically because they're at a different stage in their academic journey, and that can often clash with the type of social activities that they tend to engage in. And also because typically undergrad students, are on 3 to 4 year programs in the UK, and they've had quite a bit of time to kind of settle in, and yeah, they've well established social circles there. And yeah, to sum it up, they tend to party a lot. And if you're someone who's really serious about your studies, you probably want to be a fair distance away from that, just in terms of, noise and wanting to focus. And yeah, the next point is something that, I don't think a lot of people discuss, and that is requiring what they call a guarantor for your accommodation. And when this whole system of having a guarantor in the UK is typically to create almost like a kind of trust-based system for landlords to kind of get a jump start at having an idea of what their tenants are like. And if you're someone who's lived in the UK for a while, you'll find that usually your previous landlord acts as a guarantor or like vouchers for you when you're moving into a new place. But when you're coming from abroad and haven't stayed in the UK before, this isn't, no one knows you. This isn't something you can typically use without having to pay for it. And there are websites like UK Guarantor that you pay, I'm not sure how much it is, but it's probably about 100 to 200 pounds. And it's non-refundable, but essentially you pay for this service in order for them to kind of vouch for you to get accommodation. It's important to note that guarantors aren't typically required when you're staying on campus, but the moment you're looking at like third-party student accommodation offers or private accommodation, then you need a guarantor or certificate from a guarantor that vouches for you before any landlord is going to have a discussion with you.
I'm going
And
to jump in here.
I hope you guys can
You need
still
to
hear me.
manage your time, eh?
Okay.
You've got 3 more slides. You've got 10 minutes left. Just manage your time a little.
All right, time is flying. Okay, the last point is that be prepared to kind of buy most, like in terms of what you need in your flat. They're only going to give you Wi-Fi, a bed, and a desk at most. And when you're moving, you're going to have to buy everything from your pots, plates, pans, everything when you're first moving in. All right, let me try and speed this up a bit. Mavis, please go to the next slide. All right, packing. First point I want to mention is there are a lot of nice things to buy in the UK. So if you're someone who really enjoys shopping, I hope this doesn't go against the advice that my colleagues are going to give you later about being prudent with your money. But if you're someone who really does enjoy buying things, I would advise packing what you need, depending on your budget, of course, and then, considering, purchasing a lot of stuff once you get there that are more suited to the environment there. Again, the UK is cold and wet most of the year. So if you do decide to pack a lot of summer clothes, chances are they're probably going to collect dust. Another thing that's also critical about not packing too much is something that's going to make a dent in your pocket. Airlines charge you an arm and a leg for any extra baggage that you go above your quota or your luggage allocation. They typically charge you they could typically charge you two ways, either per kg if you're overweight with 1 or 2 bags, or if you have 4 or 5 bags and they charge you for each of those extra bags. And this can actually become, a huge disadvantage to you when you're traveling. Just, when you get to the airport and you're told that you're overweight, you need to pay a couple £100 more for the weight, or you need to remove some stuff from your luggage and throw them away. So just to avoid that, I would say, don't pack too much. Try to pack what you need. And if you can, get your hands on a digital scale and weigh your luggage before you check in. Also, the more you take with you when you first go to the UK, the less space you have for the stuff you're going to buy and want to bring back home. So just something to keep in mind. You're going to see a lot of things. You're going to be shopping, finding all these kind of really cool sales. And typically, the options you have in terms of what you're buying in the UK are endless. So keep that in mind. You're going to find a lot of nice stuff and you're going to need somewhere to put them. So my advice is don't overpack. And yeah, coming from home, moving to a place like, the UK, you do have a lot of options in terms of, consumables, food, refreshments, and all of that stuff. But then for the first couple of months, especially if it's your first time going there, you will miss home. You'll be homesick within the first couple of weeks. I would advise, especially if you're someone from Namibia, we are a meat-eating country, pack yourself some biltong, ration it out, snack on it during your study sessions, etc. It'll make you feel a lot better. Aside from that, try new things. You might find alternatives that are similar to the typical snacks that you enjoyed back in your home country, but they're not going to taste the same. Let me just give you a heads up. All right, Mavis, next slide on transportation. All right, transportation. I think, let me start with the governing thought and what I had with regards to the importance of punctuality, especially if you're in London. It isn't enough, working the London Underground, for example. It isn't enough to be there 10 minutes earlier. You literally need to be within 2 to 3 minutes of your train departing. Otherwise, like me, I actually ended up, I set my wristwatch to 10 minutes earlier, and then I got to the platform I was supposed to be at. But then there was a train going in the same direction that I was going to, and I actually thought that was, a plus, because I was actually gonna go on a route that was earlier than the one that I thought I wanted to take. And I was actually completely wrong. And this route went and took me somewhere completely different. And it was just a huge moment of an epiphany I had there at that time, where it's like, being punctual isn't being, absurdly early, but it's actually being on time, not later, not sooner. You need to be on time. And people there really respect their time. So I think it's something that you could kind of carry across, even in terms of turning up for your lectures and etc. Um, the cheapest way often to get around in the UK is the bus system. Most students tend to take buses. In a lot of times, you tend to find that the most predominant operators have routes that are very specific to the different universities. And yeah, taxis are typically your most expensive way to get around. You'll find that with the Uber systems, they're not always available in a lot of smaller towns, but if they are, they tend to fluctuate, obviously depending on demand. But when you first get to the UK, getting from from the airport to where you're going to be staying, I would advise paying the price, taking a taxi. Um, Typically because you aren't really familiar with the area, it's very easy to get lost. But once you have an address, you give that to the taxi driver and he takes you right to your doorstep. Some of them would even be kind enough to help you, carry your luggage up to where you're staying. But it's going to be a bit pricey, but yeah, just budget for that. The value is well worth it. What else can I say with regards to transportation? As soon as you get into London, be sure to buy an Oyster card. Um, an Oyster card is something that the London public transport system um, uses, whether it's for your buses or your overground railway or underground railway, you will need this. And they don't expire, only the money that's on it expires. So you can keep the same card throughout the year. Just as soon as you get into London again, especially for those who will be studying in the neighboring cities, you just go, you top it up with a couple of pounds, but then you don't have to go and buy a new card from scratch. And also, if you do have a card, keep it, because as soon as you're leaving the UK again, they actually refund you when you return your card. I think you get about 10 or 15 pounds. I'm not sure how much it is now. So get an Oyster card. It'll be a lifesaver, and keep it throughout the year. All right, Mavis, let me go to my last slide. Yeah, so this one, with regards to social or just integration in general, no man is an island. When you get to the UK, you start feeling like, okay, fine, you're the only one that isn't British. You might struggle, especially if you're someone who isn't very outspoken. If you're more of an introvert, you might find that, you're growing a bit of anxiety about meeting new people. But yeah, just know that you're not alone. Everyone is coming from all across the world in most cases in these universities, and they all, want the same thing. They want to fit in. They want to meet new friends, including the British. I think the initial thought that you have when you get there is that, they feel right at home. But the UK is so huge and diverse that people come from all different places in the country and feel as foreign as you do once you get to university. You shouldn't be afraid to try new things. Fun usually waits on the other side of your comfort zone. So especially, when you first get to the university and you're trying to figure out how to build your social life while you're there, try to join societies. This is often the easiest way to meet new people who have things in common with you, whether it's sports clubs, chess clubs, or any other kind of social clubs. I would advise you kind of identify a couple of them normally during the first couple of weeks when you arrive at the university. And yeah, you might be surprised at the type of people you meet. There's some of the friends that I've made till today, I consider long life friends I've met through these kind of societies. And something that I would advise you not to do is, it's very nice, the first thing we tend to do is gravitate towards our country mates when we get to uni. But yeah, as nice as the people from your country are, there are nicer people out there. You can go and make friends, with people that are of different religious backgrounds or ethnic backgrounds. Try to not get stuck in that place of, you meet, for example, the first time I went to the UK, I met a group of Namibians who are still my friends till today, and they're great guys. But then, because of me being so comfortable being around people of a background that's very similar to mine, I found myself gravitating towards them in almost every social case, regardless of us being in separate programs. And I must say, it kind of held me back from mingling with a lot of other people from more diverse backgrounds. So yeah, your countrymates are nice, but please make other friends. The last thing that I think I would like to mention is, we need to be, when you're going to the UK for the first time, try to be um, empathetic, not empathetic, but a bit more sensitive with regards to different cultural backgrounds. You might find that you meet someone from a country that is completely, in terms of their social dynamic or cultures, is completely different from yours. Some of them might even be sharing a flat with you. And you're gonna be very annoyed by some of the habits that they have or that they adopt. And just keep in mind that they're equally as annoyed about the stuff that you do as well, although you might perceive yourself to be, a bit more, hospitable. But then just keep in mind that everyone is coming from different places, and you need to be very empathetic and very open to learning and understanding people's backgrounds. It just makes your journey more manageable, more, how do I put it? It just makes you actually just makes you more of a nicer person, because you're gonna be, especially, I know that people in these third-party managed accommodations, they tend to try and encourage interaction with people of diverse backgrounds. So you could find yourself with 3 or 4 different flatmates who are all from completely different continents, and you guys need to find a way to make it work, because you guys are going to be living together for the next couple of months. And yeah, that's my hints or tips that I have for moving to the UK. And yeah, although I kind of wish that people had this, I tuned into these kind of sessions before I went to study. Uh, it's not a problem, if you go and you're kind of learning as you begin to encounter these things. Make your mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. It actually makes it more fun. If I had to count the number of times I got lost or did something that I really regretted because of this lack of insight, um, I probably would have, yeah, I probably would have done things much differently if I had to go back and change things. But that's fine. I wouldn't redo it for the world. I think it's okay to make mistakes. We just need to learn not to make the same mistakes twice. So aside from what we told you, or what you're gonna hear from this session, yeah, feel free to go out there, try new things, and you learn as you go. It's gonna be a really fun process. You guys are gonna enjoy the next couple of months while you study. And yeah, that's my advice for all of you guys who are going to be leaving to the UK soon.
All right, moving on to our next speaker, coming all the way from Nigeria. His name is Joshua Okoduwa. He is presently a scholar at the University of Sussex, studying an MA in poverty and development. I always, every time I say there's a poverty development, no, it's poverty and development. Um, So this speaker will be talking about a conversation that I think is very, very needed before you come to the UK to mentally prepare you for it. It's ultimately how to use your finances, because I think the difference in sort of the value of the pound versus your local currency, wherever you find yourself across the world, is very different. And you can either overspend or spend or continue to do this price comparison in your head, which just sort of doesn't allow you to live. But at the same time, there's also job seeking opportunities. And I think because many of you come from full-time employment, there's no harm in you sort of taking up a full-time job. I am cutting into his time. I've cut into it 2 minutes. Joshua, if you don't mind putting on your camera, please, so that you can do your presentation. I will avail you 2 more minutes because I took 2 minutes of your time. Take it away.
Hi everyone. Good morning. My name is Joshua, and thank you, Hafeni, for sharing very great insights. And maybe it's also would just like to say a big thank you for the platform and opportunity to be able to share. So I'm quite different. I derive energy from just hearing people talk. So if you guys don't mind, is it okay for like one or two people to just maybe just like I just really like to hear voices, so anyone wants to, especially, and congratulations to everyone who got selected for Chevening. This is me like cheering you on and stuff, so one or two people, one man and one woman, please, just for gender balance. Yeah, so I'll just wait till somebody speaks up. Thank you.
You would have to unmute yourself. I think you guys can.
Yes, Candy.
Can you put in the chat if you're unable to unmute yourself? I sincerely doubt it.
Yes, I see people being like, people are able to unmute themselves. Guys, please bail me out. Please help me. Should I call people? Okay. Michael, are you going for it?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Uganda. Yes.
Hi.
My name is Mosha Mayeko, and I'll be joining University of Leeds in 2021, pursuing a master's degree in advanced.
Oh, nice. Thank you very much, Michael. Congratulations.
Mechanical engineering. Congratulations. Amen. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Okay, so I would prefer a female now to speak, if you don't mind.
Sorry, I kind of missed it. Are we introducing ourselves?
Yes, just like say anything. I would just like to hear from you. Yeah, just anything you'd like to say about yourself. Nice.
All right, so my name is Dalit Sokalua. I'm from Malawi. I'll be joining Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine this September. I'll be studying an MSc in Tropical Disease Biology under the scholarship from the school. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Maybe it's next slide. So my name is Joshua Okoduwa, and the reason why I kind of like just told us to speak up, because I believe that one of the great things, or one of the things as leaders that we need to start considering, is taking charge of our room and taking charge of conversations. So I don't think anyone should be shy to speak up. You never can know. If I was going to give £50 now for the person that spoke first, you guys might have missed the opportunity. Anyways, so my name is Joshua Okoduwa, and I'll be talking about living life on a budget. Next slide, please. So first things first, I'm saved. I'm a Christian. I love a lot of humanitarian work. I currently lead a foundation back in Nigeria called the Restructure Africa Foundation. Like Mavis rightly said, I'm studying for a master's in poverty and development under the Chevening Scholarship. I currently work with Global Giving UK as the program fellow, and of course, I love to volunteer in my spare time. Next slide, please. Okay, so since we already did that, I'll just move forward. Pretty much, yeah. So I think that financial management is a 21st century skill that a lot of people would like to tell you about. You know, whether you are in business, whether you're in finance, whether you're in nonprofit, whatever industry that you find yourself, I think it's very, very important that, you know, one way or the other, you should have. I think, you know, the pressure is even more for young people because sometimes most of us don't have jobs, and the little resources that we have, we need to manage it in order to be able to live life to our fullest. So I think my first role in terms of like managing your finance will be honestly evaluate your income flow. There's that thing where you think that you have probably like £1,000 in your account. I'll just give like the Chevening stipend, for example, 1,000, or I am not sure if the price has increased. You would assume that £1,000 is a lot. By the time you begin to swipe your card, swipe your card, swipe your card, swipe your cards, you realize that you're just left with £200, especially your cash card. I think your cash card is the first thing that they give you, right? You just find out that your money has gone down. And why did that go down? Because, I don't think we usually take our time to sit down to say, hey, okay, am I dedicating £200 to this? Am I dedicating, £300 to this? Am I dedicating £400 to this? If you sort of like have specific things that you spend money on, you realize that you actually do not have money, because 1,000 seems like a big chunk of money. But by the time you dedicate that 1,000 to different responsibilities, you find out that you don't actually have money and you need to keep working to earn more money. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, yes. So there's a popular rule called the 50-30-20 rule. It's a very, very popular rule. Just because of time, you could probably just read it up. And I think that, like I rightly said earlier, we need to be able to learn how to, diversify, the amount of money that we have, right? So people would usually say, now the rule states that you need to spend 50%. So let's say you earn like £1,000, you want to spend 500 pounds on your want, right? You probably want to spend 500 pounds on your needs, 300 pounds on your wants, and 20% of that on savings, right? Meaning that if you get money, try as much as possible to, put down your income, like break them down. Because if you don't, you might assume you have a lot of money, and at the end of the day, you realize that you're struggling to actually make needs, and even if you tend to even earn a lot. Next slide, please. Yeah, so next slide, please. So one thing that I sort of like, thought about, or like I feel like it's a better way for you to manage your money, is for you to sort of like include investment in that. I don't know if, I know that some people said they're joining from Uganda, someone said they're from Malawi, and I know that there's some people from Namibia, and they're maybe, I think, confident you're from Nigeria. I'm not sure. There's somebody from Nigeria here. So try as much as possible to sort of like break your income into like 4 different spaces, right? So there's the 50%, of course, your house rent, your groceries, your clothing, whatever that you need that you think are quite essential. Then of course, investment, 20%. I think it's very, very important. And people will tell you that you should not, like, you should put money, like your investment money should be money that that you can't do without. But I would always suggest that there are banking apps with the growing industry in fintech. I feel like, especially in Nigeria, there's Piggy First. These are apps that sort of like allow you put certain money into it, and you could just leave it, and at the maybe in 6 months and 1 year, you can actually get just returns on your money. So I feel like the earlier that we start that as young people, the better it is, for our financial security in the future. You find the likes of Jeff Bezos, the likes of Elon Musk, the likes of Oprah. Even Mark Zuckerberg. Everyone really, really talks about investment. And I think that your Chevening stipend, or whatever stipend you get if you're on scholarship, I feel like it's a great opportunity for you to start diversifying that money into some investment plans, whether you probably want to do stuff back home in your country. Moving forward. Next slide, please. Okay, so like Hafeni rightly said, discount are your best friend. As a student, you have loads and tons and tons and tons on discounts. It's like your biggest assets. There's 10%, there's 25%. Try as much as possible to explore that. And of course, if you want to travel, just build a community around friends where you guys can always walk around together. If you say you want to go to Manchester, you want to tour or whatsoever, try as much as possible to do it early so that you can save on cost. And one thing that I also saw in the UK is sales. They would always have a sales section, right? In the sales section, you would find things at ridiculous prices. There was a suit that I probably got for £130. I got 3 suits for £130. But on the average, one suit was going to cost about 200 and something pounds, right? So always go to the sales session. Always go there. You would always find things, confidence. Thanks for shouting that out. Then of course, get loyalty cards and membership like Totem. Yeah, my next slide, please. Okay. Now, I'm not sure if anyone is going to be studying in the US, so I tried as much as possible to sort of like look for, like, try and diversify the kind of discounts you can get according to your country. So for the UK, where I'm currently in, there's the Uni Days. I'm not sure you can download Uni Days until you come to the UK. So you need to be able to change like your zone, your app needs to be able to show that you're in the UK for you to be able to download the app. There's student beans also. There's Apple for Education. Let's say you want to change your laptop, there are also discounts for that. And I think Apple also give AirPods when you buy that. There are also rail cards, so if you intend to use like the train, please try as much as possible to, pay for a rail card so that you can just get some discount on that. There's the Oyster cards, like Hafeni rightly mentioned. There's Totem. And of course, there are tons and tons and tons of discount on fashion, food, clothing, and all that stuff. And next slide, please. Okay, so teamwork, right? Like I rightly said, there's a popular saying that says teamwork make the dream work, right? Try as much as possible to, like a community that thrives together, you tend to save more, right? So let's say you're sharing an apartment with friends. You guys could probably share on groceries. You guys could probably share on maybe entertainment. Let's say you guys want to pay for TV. It's different. It's going to be more expensive if you were maybe like trying to do it alone. Like, let's say you were going to do an Uber ride, for instance, right? Or you were going to carpool. If you're the only person going from point A to point B and it was going to cost you maybe about £10, if you were 4 people together in that Uber, it means that you probably tend to maybe pay £2, right? And you tend to save on transportation. So try as much as possible to see how you can just build a community and you guys can share stuff, explore good group travels, shared accommodation, Airbnb, backpacking, and shared feeding. Like Hafeni rightly said, I know that, we like the African energy because I can assume that all of us here are most likely Africans. I know that we love the African energy, but please try as much as possible to expand outside of your network. It is very, very important, right? Don't say, and don't listen to the stereotypes. Some people will say things about Asians, some people will say things about English people, about white people. Don't listen to the stereotypes, just try as much as possible to live with people, right? They are people first before they are races, right? So I know we love the African energy, we love the African vibe, but please try as much as possible to expand outside of your network. It would help you. You will learn new things, you will gain new knowledge, and it would, of course, just sort of like build your, it would really, really help you if you try as much as possible to expand outside of your African network. Next slide, please. Yeah, I'll just quickly touch on this. Okay, so one of the things that I did when I came into the UK was I started volunteering even before I started like looking for jobs. And that was because I knew that my Chevening stipend was not going to be enough. And I was also pressured by, from back home. So I'll just quickly touch on this. Especially if you know that you're earning money. You might seem like the Chevening stipend is like a lot. And you think if you begin to do your conversion rates back in your local currency, you might think that you have a lot of money and you think you probably want to send money back to where you're from. I understand that. But at the same time too, I feel like before you start sending money back home or before you start supporting people back home, try as much as possible to, know your financial standing. Have dedicated amounts that you can send home, because immediately if you come here, people will begin to call you that they have issues. Oh, somebody is sick, somebody is that, someone. Yes, you will get it a lot. But please, it is not, in as much as it is in your place, but don't do it without having a good, without having a good financial plan. So if you are going to dedicate 10% of maybe your Chevening stipend, or maybe 5% or 6%, just sort of like having money so that you don't end up, sending a lot of money back to your country and you don't even have enough to save and also invest in your own future. So what are the types of jobs available to you? There are internships, graduate assistantships, maybe part-time jobs. One job that you will easily get into here in the UK is the care system. I started in the care system. I started working in the care job. I mean, a lot of people told me, oh, don't go into the care job and all of that. But it's a very, very honorable job. I love my job. And now I currently work at Global Giving as a UK program fellow. So please don't be afraid to start small, whether you get a waitress job, whether you like whatever job that you get, right? Just try as much as possible to do it with your heart and do it willingly. So please, no job is a no-nonsense job as long as you're getting paid for it and you're finding dignity in the job that you're doing. Understand your work limits. Please, you're only allowed to work 20 hours. Please try as much as possible not to do above your 20 hours because it would affect you in the future. You might think, it's not like my country in Nigeria where, people don't check these things, but home security, there's a record, there's a national insurance number, there's your bank account number. So they would obviously find out that you're doing more than 20 hours and that could probably affect your, visa application in the nearest future. Get proof of work. Where you can get proof of work is your university website, so please go there. And because every job that, whatever job that you get into, they would want to know whether you have the right, to be able to work in the UK. Yes, so where can you get jobs? LinkedIn is a very, very good resource. There's Indeed. There's your school career websites. There's also career websites like for the US, there's Handshake, there's Total Job Save the Student, and Simply Hired. Next slide, please. Okay, so I guess that's all that I have to say. I don't know if I manage my time well. Did I manage my time well?
I think you did. Maybe you can spend you've got 3 minutes left. Maybe you can spend time speaking on this slide because you really went by it very quickly.
Okay, thank you very much. No, I was just trying to manage my time. Thank you very much. So I think as a young professional, everyone should have a LinkedIn account. And what LinkedIn does for you is it gives you an opportunity, to be able to sort of like profile yourself on the kind of job opportunities that you want to get, right? So let's say you're somebody who's probably interested in internships. You could go on LinkedIn, go on the job feature. I wish I could share. No, go on the job feature. Try and you can actually do a lot on LinkedIn. There are opportunities. They also send you a lot. I got my first job from Indeed. Actually, it was Indeed that got me my first job. So you also want to explore that. It allows you to build your profile. Once you build your profile, you can download your CV that you could also use for other applications. School career websites are also very, very valuable because there you could find student jobs, and some of all these schools have partnership with certain companies. So those companies would most likely send opportunities to the school, and maybe you just want to apply. So that's a very, very good place where you can find opportunities. And they also offer career advice. Let's say you need help with your cover letter, you need help with revamping your CV, you need help with what kind of internship should you be looking into. There are counselors and people there that can actually help you. And career websites, Google is your best friend. I believe that for every country, you can, just like find like Google, like, oh, where can I find student jobs? You would obviously find tons and tons and tons and tons of, websites that you can, maybe get hired. So I guess that's it for me. I'm open to take any questions at the moment. And just to touch on Hafeni's question on, I'm not sure if, yeah. Oh yeah. Okay.
It's fine. I'll facilitate the Q&A session. Okay. The first question that you have is from Helia, and Helia, who I'm assuming is a female, says, "Hi, what advice would you give concerning using one's bank cards from a home country, like using your bank account from back home?"
So just for financial management's sake, I would advise that you leave whatever monies you have in your account, leave it there. Just leave it there. You don't have to touch it, and just see how you can survive here in the UK, or whatever country that you're in with that currency. Why that is so is because don't forget that you most likely might be going back home, right? And maybe emergencies, you probably in your country, you want to spend from that money. So exchange rate is very crazy. For the Nigerian exchange rates, the dollar, the pound to the naira is not fair. So I would not spend my money I know that the only time I spent money from my Nigerian account was when I came into the UK and I needed to buy a SIM card at the airport. So I had to spend from my Nigerian account. And when I saw how much was debited, I promised myself I will never do it again. So yeah, that's it. Yeah. So the exchange rate is not nice. It's not nice for the Nigerian context. It's not nice. So I would just advise maybe spend money here in the UK. Yeah.
So the thing is, Joshua, I just wanted to touch on one of the things that like Hafeni kind of touched on a little bit, but it also relates to finance, is that when you get to the airport, you have to get yourself to your university before you get settled, so as to be able to sort of start the process of getting money into your, if you're a Chevening scholar, into your UK bank account. Because this is your talk session, Joshua, could you perhaps speak on the fact that you don't get money into that account until school starts? So if you arrive 2 weeks in advance, you actually don't have money from the scholarship until the 23rd. And what happens during that period of, and also what do you do when you have to sort of get yourself from the airport and that requires paying for?
Okay, Tetega, I don't know, can you please mute yourself? There's like a feedback from your end. Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah. So what I wanted to say concerning that was before I came into the UK, I just changed my Nigerian currency into pounds, right? So I sort of like had cash that I could work with, right? And another thing that I did was I had somebody here in the UK that sort of like planned my trip. So reach out to friends or people we already have in the UK, let them, they can borrow you money. I had somebody borrow me as much as 45. So the person planned my train, planned my oyster, planned my SIM card, just did everything for me before I came. So if you have current Chevening scholars here, sort of like talk to them and say, this is what, and they have a better idea on how you can save costs, right? Because, and please don't fall for the university provision. They will tell you that they have a school or they have taxis that can pick you up and it's going to cost about 100. Please don't fall for it. It's 100 and some people paid as much as 170. It would sound very comfortable and you might think, oh, Chevening has given you money, so you think that you have a lot of money. Please don't fall for it. Look for somebody or people here in the UK already that just talk to them. Of course, they know that you're a scholar and you obviously will get money. So please try and explore that. But in terms of like, I actually didn't come to the UK with a pound. I didn't come here with a pound. I never came here with a pound. So I just survived. I just had friends here who sort of like me, I was coming, so they already took care of me. So if you don't have relationship with people in your school, please go talk to them. It was also the pandemic. So I was in isolation. So people were bringing me food stuff. People were bringing me like things that I could survive with. So I think that you can thrive with that. Yeah.
I think Joshua is right. The first thing you need to do is build a community of people who are already in the UK so that they can help you with the financial resources that you need. The same thing happened with me. A friend of mine paid for my transport, my cab to school, and it was a prepaid amount. It wasn't a meter cab because a meter cab can, so it's good if you know that it's going to cost £100 before you get into the cab and you pay it in advance. There are some of those transport systems, and I was coming to Sussex and it cost me £120. But like Hafeni said, paying that amount to get you to school is really a personal decision. Some people decide it's too much. Other people are like, it's okay. Some people actually come by train. And I mean, if you're confident enough to navigate the transport system, a train will cost you a lot less than that, like £40 or something, depending where you're going, or even less than £40. It's just my flight arrived at 9 p.m. in the evening, and I wasn't willing to take the risk of getting lost at night. Whereas if you arrive at 2 p.m., and if it's possible to arrive during the day, do that, because then you can actually navigate the transport system and you can ask people. But 9 p.m. in the evening, I don't recommend that you do that. The other thing is, if you're unable to find a friend to help you do that, and there's just no community here before you get here, then get the pounds back home where you go to the local bank account and then do the swapping, because you will probably have to do that if you're unable to get somebody to borrow you the money that you give back. Because for Chevening scholars, and if you're not a Chevening scholar, I'm not really sure what happens in relation to that, but Chevening gives you that 600 settlement sort of fee or whichever, and it sounds like a lot of money, but that's money that you actually want to end up saving for when summer comes for you to travel, something that nobody told me to do. Joshua, the next question is, what bank accounts do you recommend for students in the UK?
I think I would suggest preferences. There's Santander, there's Lloyd's, there NatWest. Some of them require monthly bank charges, maybe like £1 or £5 or thereabouts. So you probably want to look for the banks that don't have monthly charges. Like I use Lloyd's, and they don't give. They don't charge me monthly. So you probably want to consider that. They are also look for banks that also give student discounts or cashbacks. So the more you use your cards, you can. The more you use your cards, the more you use your bank account, you can also get like cashbacks or get further discounts for you to be able to use in the UK. So I would just say, just check Google as much as you can. But if you want to pay a monthly fee to get your bank account managed, that's fine. And if you don't want to, I don't want to pay a monthly fee to get my bank account managed. I just need a card. So yeah, you can actually do that. And yeah, for there are also non-traditional banks like Monzo or Money. These banks are banks. They're just digital banks. You don't necessarily need to walk into a physical building to be able to open an account. So let's say, for instance, you just came into the UK and you need to open a bank account, and Chevening needs to pay your stipend, and you don't have a bank account. You can explore digital banks like there's Resolute. I think Resolute. There is Resolute. There's Money, and there's also Monzo. You can just check that out when you can. Thank you.
Just to add on to what Joshua said, so you need to understand that there are some cloud-based bank accounts, and then there are some physical-based bank accounts. Lloyd's, for example, is a physical bank account where you can walk into the bank, and then Moniz is basically virtual, which means that the virtual ones are very easy to sign up for, and then Lloyd's requires a lot of information. Now, what you need to understand is that you can have these two bank accounts to allow you to separate your savings versus your day-to-day bank account, because most of us have two bank accounts where we have the one that, because you have to save maybe for travel, whatever your purposes for saving are, and then you have your day-to-day account where this is the one that you spend. It's always recommended that the cloud-based account be the one that you spend with every day, because and then the one where you can walk into a bank that is more reliable, that's where you actually save your big amounts of money. Something to note is that when you get to the UK, Chevening will give you a card, right? And you usually pick this up at your local embassy. However, I think a month into being here, they want you to open up a local bank account, because that account will become inactive. And so when you immediately get to the UK and you get out of isolation, that's one of the first things that you need to start doing. Most of us waited, which means that we ended up having to give Chevening our cloud-based bank accounts for our month-to-month stipend. So one of the things that you need to do is try to do it as soon as possible, so that Lloyd's becomes your primary account, and then Monzo or Moniz becomes your day-to-day bank account. So it's recommended that you do both. Okay. Then another question, Joshua, is you said something about you shouldn't fall for the university. What did you mean? Can you answer that, and also just tell them about the fact that the university will give you a blanket that costs £35 and it's just don't do it?
Oh yeah. So, like I said, the UK system, or the UK university system, is quite tricky, and that's because a lot of international students tend to fall prey for things that they don't know, right? So for instance, the cab ride from how much Success was starting was about £170. It was very, very ridiculous, and it seems quite cheap. Because if you look at a Chevening stipend, you might think that you can afford 170, especially when they give you an arrival allowance. I think you can invest that. People that explore other opportunities probably end up spending £35, £40, £50, right? So you could save more, right? So when I mean fall prey, I think it's very, very optional. If you feel like you want to, maybe the school has designed something and you feel like you can invest that, or you think that you want to pay such amount, please go for it. But for someone like me that's very concerned about my finances, I like to always weigh my options. So I'll weigh my options. If I was going to do it myself, if somebody was going to help me, how much is it going to cost? If I was going to go this route, how much is it going to cost? I try to just have a lot of options. It helps me make better financial decisions. So also the school would probably give you, I still owe my school £25. Why am I owe my school £25? Because I came here and they told me that there was isolation, isolation and food or whatever it was called. And I thought it was free. I didn't know, and I ate it. Only for me to, and they told us it was free. Maybe you can attest to this. Only for me to realize that I'm owing the school £25. And if you and if you see what they gave, it was everything there probably cost £5. But the school said it was £25. And guess what? I have to pay. If I don't pay, I can't graduate. So I just feel that if there are things that you feel like you can do with yourself, just do it, so that you don't have to put yourself in a space where somebody is just taking advantage of you because you're an international student who doesn't know anything. Yeah.
Okay, I am going to send you guys all the material that I had about cash cards, different bank accounts, packing list, as well as the checklist before you get onto the plane. This was very helpful for me because it kind of allowed me to create my own checklist of the things that I needed to do prior to leaving, simply because the process is so extensive. There's so many things you need to get done. And the key to being ready to get to the UK is preparing yourself. Another thing that we need to mention in this particular process, especially pertaining to money, is that because you don't have your money on your Chevening account, because you probably arrive 2 weeks in advance for isolation purposes because it's COVID, you need to bear in mind that you have to eat. Now, the online system here is very effective, but it requires planning. What I mean by that is in order for you to order, Joshua, if you don't mind, just quickly write down the shops that do like online deliveries like Asda and those types, Sainsbury, etc. It takes about 2 weeks. So if you put in an order today, it will only deliver 2 weeks from now because the dates, the way that they arrange it is always a 2-week period, right? So you want to make sure that you understand if you're arriving argumentatively, you're arriving on the 14th of September, you're going to do this on the 1st of September and you're going to put in a dummy order that you'll keep editing. So you know what you like, right? You like tuna, you like whatever. You write a shopping list and then you're going to have it delivered to your accommodation a day after you're arriving to the UK, so that morning, the next morning rather, you've got food. But those are some of the things that I didn't do and got here to the UK looking at the walls like, oh snap, I'm hungry and I'm in isolation. What am I going to do now? And it was one of those things where I had to then put into the Chevening group, find the Sussex group, find somebody willing to go get me food. And then it was a whole procedure. But that's because I withdrew money at the airport and had cash on me, and I just needed somebody to get the groceries for me, and I gave them money. But maybe you can bypass some of those options and rather just do the delivery. All right, so a quick informal introduction of Robyn. Robyn is my classmate. We're both studying an MA in Globalization, Business and Development. She lived in South Africa for an extended period. That's why I love her so much, because it's like she feels like home. And she's British, so she studied her undergrad at Cambridge and presently is at Sussex University. Very, very talented individual who does great academically, which is why I thought she'd be the perfect person to have speaking on the academic part of this session. Robyn, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mavis, and hi everyone. It's such a pleasure to talk with you all this morning. And yeah, so I maybe just to add to what Mavis said there. So I was originally an undergrad in molecular biology, and I've now come and I'm doing a social science degree with Mavis in globalization, business and development. So hopefully some of what I can share today are also the tips of I've kind of had to navigate a new system myself. So although, as you can hear, I am from the UK, I've had to kind of rediscover the whole system. So I'm going to share a little bit about that. And yeah, I definitely know what it's like moving to new countries and not having a clue, the whole system. So I think, when I was 23, Asi Delitso on the line, I was in Malawi. And yeah, that was quite an experience, moving there in South Africa. So I just would like to back up everything the rest of the speakers have said so far today. And you won't remember it all, and that's okay, but just ask, just ask, because people are willing to help. So yeah, right. First on to hacking the UK system. I'm going to talk through these 4 things. So the 4 key points that I would like to get across. First up, turning up. kind of isn't enough. You've actually got to go the extra mile to be able to make it through the system. So I'm going to talk through that. Then some cool things around like your study strategy. So how to conserve your energy, matching your mental models to the systems that you're working in, and finding your flow. Third up, which there's quite a bit on, is essay writing. And again, I don't expect anyone to remember this all today. It's just some like early tips to help. And the last thing that's really important is collaborating with your colleagues, your peers, and learning from each other. So they will be the 4 things. Thank you, Mavis. Cool. So, right, first up, like I said, I know the UK system is really different to quite a lot of other systems, even from university to university, course to course. So this is very much what I'm sharing today. It's quite generic. And I think the main thing is to make sure that when you arrive, that you really try and understand the system that you're in. But some key things about this is that, look, you get out as much as you put in. And I love what Mavis was saying about like the 9 to 5 thing and, really managing your time around this. Because even though you may only have a few lectures a week, you are expected to put those hours in outside. So lectures alone aren't enough. I can't remember who it was saying this early on. I think it was in like the first session we were talking about timing, Hafeni about like turning up for trains. Lectures the same. Be there punctual. Whether it's on Zoom or in person, if it's an 11 o'clock lecture, it's an 11 o'clock lecture, and they will start. But at the same time, I know a lot of these pieces say like, here's the essential reading, here's your reading list. Really do read those things before, because otherwise, look, you can turn up and you'll be fine, but it won't make sense. It's not like you can just absorb the information in the lecture, and it's not going to be a case of the lecture telling you what you need to know. It's supplementary. What you need to know is actually in all of the other readings and the extra things that you're given as well. So it may sound a bit scary, and that's why in the next bit, my section 2, 3, and 4, I'm going to give some tips as to how to navigate that. But participate in and outside of the classroom. So bearing that all in mind, because I don't know about some of you, but in some courses, like the reading list is as long as the floor to the ceiling kind of thing. What do you do? How do you go about navigating that? And what the first point I've put here is around conserving your energy. So I would say when you first get your course material and you see what you've got for the term, there are going to be some weeks that you're like, that looks really amazing, and others that you're like, that just doesn't click with me. And that's fine, because actually, and again, I'm talking more to the experience that we've had in our course. It might be different elsewhere, so check, but your final essay is only going to be on a couple of the weeks. So obviously throw yourself into it, but it's okay if you don't do all the extra reading for every week. Do the essential, and sometimes the essential reading is enough. And if you find, say, week 5 is a week that you are absolutely so interested in, maybe do a bit of the reading early, maybe start looking into it now, maybe think, would I want to do a term paper on this? Contact the lecturer in advance if you have the time and if you want to, because that gets you so far ahead, and it's you're putting the energy in early, but actually by the end, when it comes to writing it, you've actually started to gather all the information you need. And in other weeks where it's a subject you either don't get as much, you're not as into, you can be working on the other stuff. So yeah, obviously I would say keep an open mind, because every week, every lecture may bring something that you had no idea about, and you actually love a topic that you didn't think you would. And I'd so bear that in mind, but also you can go the extra mile on certain weeks. So that's that first bit there. And maybe while we're on that particular one around the turning up and the extra bit and the strategy of conserving your energy, in the UK, emails are king. And I hate emails, but there's almost always going to be an email there that you might have missed that has the information that you need. So if it's the course material for the whole term, or where to go to get access to printing, or who you need to contact for X, Y, and Z, and all of those things, it will be there in an email. So just try and stay on top of your emails if you can and go back to them and have some kind of system. It's just one thing that I would just say, like, it really does help. So that's that bit. Now, moving on to the next thing around finding a system that works for you. I can sit here and I can say, oh, no, maybe it's back. It's all very well me saying what works for me, but my brain works in some weird and, mixed up way, and you've got to find something that works for you. So I know that we live in an age where, like, our phones and our laptops are almost like an extension of our mind. There are good and bad things to that, obviously, but this is great in some ways because you've got all these tools that you can use so that you don't have to remember it all up here. And I've just got a list of some things of tools that have helped me, and I've got a slide at the end of this that actually has all the links to those. So I found this year that, like, Microsoft OneNote was absolutely amazing. I mean, Mavis and I have spoken about this one, and when I shared some of the notes, like, you've just got to have a system that, for me, I need something that's flexible and simple, because throughout a term my way of thinking about things is going to change a lot, but as long as I've got something that's there that I know, right, okay, I've seen something that's interesting, it goes with week 7, and it's to do with the lecture, I know where to put it. And then the next slide, you'll see how I do that. So Microsoft OneNote, Google Scholar is like my go-to for finding anything.
Robyn,
yeah.
Give me a second. I think that it would be so sad if they don't see that slide properly.
They were okay.
I'm going to try to share your original slides. Wow.
I mean, I could share my screen if that helps, Mavis, and I'll just put it onto that. Do you think that's better?
I absolutely don't mind that.
Cool.
Just get my so guys, okay, there we go.
You see it?
Yes, that is it just looks so much better that way. Let's do that. Got it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, so I don't know about you guys. So at IDS and Sussex, IDS is Institute of Development Studies that Mavis, Joshua, and myself are studying at. We get all the Microsoft stuff free for the year. So there are other things out there, but I love this, right? So basically what I have done for each module, so these are all the modules down this side. So for term 1, Mavis and I did globalization, business and policy. So I click on it, and what I did was just create for each week, like, it's really simple, right? Just have for each of the weeks, like, 1 page, and then you can put things in it. Like, I didn't do a lot for some weeks, and other weeks I've got loads. So I think the one that I had up was from Business as a Development Actor. And then there was a particular reading that I loved, and it was super useful, and I ended up using it in one of my term papers. But there, I've got it there, and so I can go and say, oh, what was the lecture? So I've got all my notes from the lecture there. I've got my readings. It's just about having stuff in one place. And I don't know, Mavis, maybe I would say invite you in to talk about this, because I don't know what it was particularly.
And I love it so much. You don't understand, like, this is the best part. So the app is called OneNote. You'll see it at the top of her. The reason why I'm so excited about this part of the lecture is because I only found this mode of taking notes in my 2nd semester, because Robyn and I were kind of like studying together, and so she showed me this and I was amazed. And then in my 2nd semester I started doing the same thing. So using her exact same format, where at the top it's like, that's the module, Business as a Development Actor, and those are the weeks, because the way that the UK system works is they have like week 1, week 2, etc., and then the lecture. And so everything you learn in that lecture is kind of noted down. So you'll see her lecture 1. And so Robyn did this, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. So till today, I have all my notes from all my lectures, because even when I am studying and I've got questions, I'll note it down, because we've long since moved past the time where you have a notepad with a pen, because Robyn is going to have this forever, because it's electronic and it goes with her, and meaning that tomorrow when she's like looking for something, she can just word search it and find it, and she remembers, oh, there's that one lecture who said this. And then when you do, so what you also notice, I'm going to say this and I'm going to give it back to you, Robyn. You'll notice she's got there like feminism and all of that, is because those are the papers she read for that specific lecture. And so you're going to read like 7 sort of journal entries, right? And then later you're like, wait, what did the feminism one say again? And you can even copy and paste the material. You don't have to write it. You can just highlight what really stood out for you, so you have it in a summarized format. Yes, so this, if there's anything you take from this session, please let it be one note. Please, I beg you. I beg you. Let it be one note.
And maybe just while you're saying that, like, it's a little hack that I love. So this here, if you can see it, it's a screenshot. And what everyone's got a different laptop, but down in the corner, I have this screen snip thing. So when I'm watching a lecture, I just like literally snip part of the screen and can paste it in. It's just like, I just dump everything in here. I'd call it a dump. And like Mavis was saying, I have these notebooks, right? I have like, at the beginning as well, I was also like writing stuff in, because I love writing stuff down. Like this is never going to take over for me, like the beauty of being able to do handwritten notes. But when you're dealing with such high quantities of stuff, having it online is critical. And I would also just say, like, this week one was one of the weeks I end up doing an essay on. That's the reason I've got so many papers. I do not have this for every single week. That would be mad. And that would be, that is insane. But this was a week that I did a lot on. And that's what I would maybe then, I'm going to stop sharing this, and maybe do you want to share your screen again? Because that's something I just wanted to touch on, is like, note taking and how you take notes effectively. I think that's the next thing I was going to talk about in this section on your study strategy. I don't really need to slide up, but basically, like, it's one thing to just highlight everything that you're reading through. What I would say when you're reading stuff is, because you're going to come across stuff that is so different from anything you've ever read before, hopefully, because otherwise I guess it's not a useful master's. Go with your instinct, right? Like, I think that's one thing a lot of us, I definitely feel this, have that kind of imposter thing of like, oh my gosh, should I be here? Am I smart enough to take this all in? Like, I don't understand what's going on here, what they're saying. That's okay, and that's going to happen. And there are going to be some papers that maybe aren't going to click, and some that maybe you have to read a few times, but just let it go in, like, read something through. Abstract, intro, and conclusion is often all you need when you're searching for papers, and you're working out, is this a paper I really need? But when you're done, just feel it. Like, how did you feel from that paper? Did you agree with it? Did you not? And write it down. So I'll often do like a few sentences of like, this is what I thought of the paper, because your opinion is valid. And I think that's the most important thing of all of this, is like, in a UK master's, they're looking for your opinion on these things. It's not about rote learning. It's not about saying just what someone else has done. You have to analyze it in your own way, and that's where the marks really come from. So that's why I think like note taking in this form is really helpful. What's your opinion and why? So yes, highlighting things is really important. It's really helpful, but actually when you're finished, like, getting the discipline to just like write down what you thought of something, I think is really cool. The other thing I would say on top of OneNote when it comes to saving papers, I always save papers that I find the full title of the paper, the author, and the year, just so that it's easier to find. And then I usually save it with like I've got a little acronym saying it was, again, like week 6 essential or week 6 additional, just so that I know where it came from and it's easier for me to find. And it's just little hacks like this that I find fit with the way my mind works. You will find your own system, but when you start out in the first couple of weeks, just try and find something that you think you can keep going throughout. It's all very well having all these fancy systems and stuff that you then are struggling the whole year to try and keep up on. So don't do that, but just have things that you know it's going to be easy to follow, easy to keep up with, and it just makes organizing stuff when it comes to essay writing that much easier. Okay, right. Third thing, which is the main one, I guess, is really like, when it comes to hacking the system, if you are in an essay-based subject, which again, for me, this was like a whole new thing. Like, I'd never written a social science essay before in my life. So first up, you've got to do the research and work out like what the people that are marking your essays are looking for. That's kind of the first thing, because I think like in our case, maybe Sussex has a different way of marking things to somewhere else, so I don't want to be too specific. Mavis, do you mind just going back to the previous one just for a sec? Thanks. Yes, because the next one is important. Things always take longer than you think. Like double it, triple it. It always takes longer. So when it comes to working out your time frame with deadlines, I would actually say try and get like a week before the deadline. That's when you're in your head, you should first have the deadline, because it's going to take longer, and also the more repeats of something you do, the better it will be. So you may have like a 50, it might be a quality of a 50 mark, and then after one revision it becomes a 60, and after another revision it could become a 70. So I would just say like revisions and giving yourself extra time is important. The last thing there is just get something on paper. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I get mental blockages all the time. Just get something on paper, and often things flow from there. Thanks, Mavis. We'll go on to the next one. Right, so specifics about essays in the UK. This isn't a story, right? It's not like a novel, a crime novel, it's not about keeping someone guessing till the last minute. In an essay, right? In the essay, the marker wants to know exactly what you're saying up front. So in the introduction, you should be like, I'm writing on this. This is why it's important. This is how I'm going to go about answering the question, and this is what I'm going to tell you. And like, this is my key point that I'm making for the whole essay. If you do that in the first paragraph, in your introduction, the marker is already going to like you so much that they're probably going to be a little bit more lenient when it comes to looking at the rest of your paper. So the introduction is absolutely critical, and you should really like take them through, like, I'm going to answer this question in this way, and the answer to the question is in capitals for a reason. I've been burnt by this. The first piece of work that I think Mavis was in the same class with me as this as well, I didn't answer the question properly, and I probably lost about 10 marks. It was a paper that I put so much of my heart and soul into. They loved the paper, but they were like, you didn't answer it closely enough. So make sure you're answering the question. And then the second part is like the logical layout. So I always use like paragraph or section headings to help me. The first sentence of each of my paragraphs should pretty much tell the reader what it's about. And that's what I mean by signposting, right? So you're like, in this section, I'm going to talk about X, Y, Z. And I'm making 3 key points, which are as follows. It's almost like it's quite logical, it's quite scientific the way I approach it, which might not be the right thing for everyone. Like I said, that my background is in science, and that's kind of how my brain has to work to keep it working. But these are just some of the tips that I would share. Right, I realize, Mavis, that I'm kind of at the end, coming up for time-wise. So let's just go on to the next slide quickly, which I won't have time to go into. Oh, that's the previous slide. Try again. Perfect, right. I don't have time to go into this. This is like a whole thing in itself. But when it comes to making a point in your essay, less is more. I made this mistake at the beginning. I tried to put in everything that I knew about a topic and show off like how much I knew. But actually, that's not going to get you the points. What's going to get you the marks is by making a strong argument. So this is something, and again, Mavis, I'm happy to share some more on this at a later point if people find it useful. But there's like these 4 steps. So you make your assertion, then you say why you're making that assertion, then you give evidence, and then you link it back to the question. And if you do that for everything, like, that really starts to help flesh out your academic writing and get you like the higher grades as well. But again, like, I'm sure there are going to be loads more questions on all that kind of stuff. That really is almost like an hours thing in itself. And you probably want it nearer the time of doing your essays. So I'm going to leave that there. And if there are more questions, we can come to it, because the last thing I want to say before we move on is the collaboration bit, right? It's not all about the grades. This process is about learning and growing, and especially those of you that have come to do your masters after working. I was working for 7 years before coming back and doing my masters. For me, this is not about the grades. This is about what I'm learning and growing with and able to take back into the working world. And so please, like, make the most of the learning process. Talk to your friends, your colleagues, your peers, share ideas with them, listen to their ideas, read their papers, and vice versa, edit each other's papers. Oh my gosh, that has saved me so many times. I unashamedly, like with a couple of my close friends, we share our papers before we hand them in, unless of course it's an exam and you're not allowed to do that. But in most cases, in essays, they actually encourage you to do it. So share your papers, get someone to edit, you learn and you grow. And I think that's what this whole process is about. So in terms of hacking the UK system, do it together. Joshua, yeah, that's a great point. So Mavis, I'm done now. So I guess we can go on to questions, and Joshua puts in an incredible point. These are just some key resources. I won't go into them. You've got them, everyone. You can, and you can ask me for more access. Joshua just made a really good question around plagiarism. Oh my gosh, this comes up so often in the UK system. Reference everything. Like, you have to reference everything. And if you have copied something from somewhere else and you put it as a quote, you have to make sure that you have said exactly who it's from and the page. But there are some really good tools here. So we've got something called Turnitin that helps you to work out if you've plagiarized or not. So I think, again, it's about giving yourself the extra time, give yourself a few days, check it through. I did mention something and I haven't spoken about it, but it's referencing style. And that really helps you when it comes to plagiarism and avoiding plagiarism. Now, again, there's no time to go into referencing, but you can choose many styles. Every university has a page that helps you through that. I had to learn this all from scratch because I'd completely forgotten referencing styles. But just make sure you're consistent, and if in doubt, over-reference. So if you make any claim, you have to say where you got that from. So if you are saying, I don't know, it rains more in the UK than any other country in the world, which right now it looks like it does outside, you need to then have a reference of saying where you got that information from. And if you think it's common knowledge, you might be okay, but even in my case, I would just like put a reference to something. I don't know, Joshua, if you want to add anything to that for people. Or Mavis.
Yes,
Okay, go ahead, Joshua.
Yeah. So just heads up, my first paper, I got about 76% plagiarism.
Okay, his internet is cutting out.
Can you hear me?
Is cutting out. Not really.
Can you
the
hear
internet keeps cutting out. We can hear you now, though.
So
Okay.
I said on my first assignment, I had about 76% plagiarism, and it was not good. And that was because I came from Nigeria and there was a learning style that I was used to, right? You know how you just go online, you just copy, paste, you know, you make your presentation. And so it was really bad. And I got, I got into trouble for it. So I think that one thing that, Robyn has rightly said, you might have to unlearn so many things or writing cultures that you probably have in your educational system, in your traditional education system. The one thing that the UK does not joke with is plagiarism. It is a big offense, really. So I think that, maybe just like get very, very conscious of it. There's a popular software that's called Turnitin. So for every assignment that you're going to submit, you'd have to run, your assignment or your paper through Turnitin. And I think standard, they will say 10% is fine, 20% might not be too bad. But if the numbers begin to increase, maybe like 30%, 40%, 50%, then it might seem like you actually didn't write the paper and you probably just stole someone's work. So it's pretty much called theft. You are stealing someone's work and you're not giving them credit for the work that or the thing that they put in. So it's called, that's what it's called, plagiarism. Yeah.
Okay, so Robyn, you've got 3 more minutes, but there's something that I realized that we didn't do prior to this, and I just like to fill in that knowledge gap. So a lot of you come from a system where you write exams, and although exams are still sort of a part of an MSc, in most cases there's a thing called a term paper. And so in some universities, like I know Bristol, they actually write exams where you study and then you've got a 1-hour period to actually write it, and that's the standard practice of exams, and that's what you're used to from different cultural backgrounds. So for our Namibian context, we write exams. Now, when it comes to the UK system, in most cases, especially when it's like development and those types of non-sort of analytical and mathematical sort of focused MSCs, you write term papers. This is basically where you get to write either a 2,500 term paper, usually if it's 15 credits, or a 5,000 word essay, usually if it's a 30 credit module. And so this you're given in different formats. Either you write it over 1 month, or either you get it on one day and you've got a 5-day period to submit it. That's usually sort of an exam, but it's an essay that you write. So when Robyn was talking about week 1, week 2, there's different sort of like subheadings for these different weeks where they teach on different matters in the course. And then you will choose which week you want to write an essay on, and there will be a specific essay question, or you can choose your own essay question and it is marked in accordance. So when Robyn was talking about like how to write the essay, and she's talking about your introduction, middle, and conclusion, it's because these essays, there's a specific format you're supposed to use so as to score marks. So when she was talking about signposting and all of these different things, my suggestion to you is write down these words that she was using and take them from her presentation, because I'm going to resend it for those that just joined. And then you're going to go look it up on YouTube and learn what is signposting, or just let us know, or rather go through the process of actually finding this information. And if you don't find it, go to my website and then send me an email, and then we'll try to respond. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of this information is kind of like very high level, but trust the process of going through the process of understanding what the speakers are talking about, so that when you go into your academic year, it all makes sense. Because if you get one note before school starts, when you go through the process of like taking track, you're like, this is why I needed this, because the material is so much. Or you teach yourself about Zotero and you go through the process of understanding how to cite. When you eventually get to writing your essays, you're like, oh my goodness, that's why I needed to learn this. It's one of those things that preparation is better done beforehand, even though it feels like, I don't know what you're talking about. Just try, so that when you get into the process, it all makes sense. And the reason why we're having this session is to prepare your mind, because everything we're saying to you right now, we had to find out in the system. So now you're just drowning, right? So we're trying to make sure you don't drown. If you can prepare yourself, because you've got 2 months to get ready for school. And if you do much of the work before school starts, you're going to breeze through it, because your essay is going to be like, okay, girl, let's get it. So take the advice. It sounds a lot. Write down the things, watch a million YouTube videos, download the apps, get acquainted with the app, so that when the process of writing happens, all of this doesn't shock your system. Because for many of us, we didn't have the privilege of a session like this. So we were just drowning, just drowning. But Robyn, please close, because I took about 2 minutes of your time before we move on to Taimi.
Yeah, no, I think just to close out on that, it's really important that every single master's that people are doing in subject is going to be different. Ours is very much coursework based, and I think most masters are, because this is training you to be more of an academic, more about thinking critically. So not just an academic, but also, I guess, in your career. So it's not about being able to just regurgitate something in an exam. Some cases you might still have exams, but a lot of it is going to be about going deeper, and about showing that you can really get into something, really understand it, critique it. So that's why I guess these papers, they're so picky about your structure and your flow and your like logic. But I am happy to answer more questions on this another time, or if it's something that people like even into next year need to look into. When we're actually writing things, it may be easier. But hopefully it's a good overview for now.
You volunteered yourself for another webinar session. I'm going to start charging with these things. It takes so much of my time. I hope you guys understand. That time you guys are going to have pounds anyway. So you know.
But yeah, so anyway, hopefully it was a good intro. If you do want to ask more questions, you can. And also congratulations to everyone, and good luck for next year. And let's go on to our last speaker. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robyn. I think that's literally the most useful session that we've had. I think everything in as far as packing is concerned is very valid to you right now, accommodation and saving. But I think the most important thing that you need to start doing prior to coming here, on top of the million things that you have to get done, will definitely be you having to prepare yourself academically. So we move on to our last speaker for today before we go into the workshop session where you guys' questions can become a bit more personalized. Taimi is a Harvard graduate. I dream it. I profess it over my life. Even though I'm busy doing a dissertation that has me feeling like I'll never go back to academia, I actually think that Harvard has to see my face. Just for the name, just for the ambiance. Nonetheless, our next speaker is Taimi. Absolutely look up to her. She's phenomenal. She's a fitness enthusiast. She has done exceptionally well in her academic journey, and she presently works for one of a multilateral conglomerate, ExxonMobil, and she's Namibian, living on Namibian soil. Taimi, please switch on your camera, and the floor is yours.
I'm going to switch off my my video, and I hope that my voice can keep you engaged. But really just wanted to share 5 things that I wish I knew, sort of the 5 things that made me really anxious about going back to university. So I actually went back to university after about 10 years, which was a really long time, but had the same experiences that all of you are mentioning right now. Having to explain to the university why my grades in undergrad weren't as great as I wanted them to be, and being anxious about why I should actually be applying to Harvard. So Mavis, if you could just go to the next slide, please. So the 5 things that I really wished I knew, sorry, the next one after that. So we just got through that. Next slide. Great. So the 5 things I wish I knew. Conquering imposter syndrome, then really just learning how, once I was there, the balancing act, and making sure that I took care of myself and took care of my academics and made the best of my experience. And then making your circle bigger. This is probably one of the biggest things that everybody should be doing at university. It's sort of a balance or a mix between social life and also working, really. So by making your circle bigger, I'm not sure if any of you heard the song, it's just really increasing your circle, your networking circle, because it will be, your 911 call, or it will be the most important circle that you will refer to after university. Mind, body, soul, this is really just taking care of your body and the actual physical being of yourself and your emotional self, and making sure that you stay intact in order to be your best self academically. And then just really remembering that it's a place for abundant learning. It's not just for academics alone, and that you should be able to, you should feel free to step out and explore beyond the classroom. So I'll just dive into those a little bit more. Mavis, if you could change the slide. So I'm not really a slide person, so I really wanted this to be as quick as possible. So conquering imposter syndrome. So I probably like to say that, remember that you're not alone, and accept that you can prepare for everything. A lot of the information that you're getting here is obviously, it feels like you're drinking from a fire hose, but know that it's just for information, and more information will be thrown at you, and be kind to yourself as you receive this information. So really, conquering imposter syndrome is probably one of the biggest things. And again, just, talking about Harvard and my experience, this is something that anybody would experience. And, you start to feel like you're a fraud. Is everyone smarter than me? Is everyone brighter and better? And if you're feeling this way, and most of you have mentioned that this morning, is that you're not alone. And I think the statistics are around that 70% of people do feel this way at one point or another, whether it's in the academics or professional lives. And the reality is that these feelings of inferiority can impact your academic experience and your work generally. So with imposter syndrome, it's very easy to look around and be like, I don't feel like I belong here. And this, I think most people will experience it. From my experience, is that it's because you just see what you don't have, and you're picking out on what everybody else has that you don't have. And so it's very important to recognize that, you don't struggle to internalize your own successes, and you make sure that you're not constantly worried or concerned about what other people are going to find out, that you're fake or fraud and not meant to be there. But what I would like to emphasize is that the reality is that the admissions people saw something in you, and colleges recruit for their reputation, right? So they're lucky to have you, and they're expecting you to shine. So don't ever forget that. Specifically, I mean, just going back to what I just said, that colleges recruit for reputation, for their reputation, is that they see that you would be amazing at some point in your life, perhaps after graduation, and that they would want to be able to say that you're an alumni or a graduate of this university. So really just don't spend a lot of time, and as much as I think a lot of a lot of what everybody else has shared today is around, I just lost my train of thought, but, being social and having fun. Remember that part of it as well is that if you're going to spend time on Netflix and not doing things that are very productive, the imposter syndrome is going to feel real. And so make sure that you're being as productive as possible and still enjoying your time in your academics. So the next one, the balancing act. So I'm not a huge fan of hustle culture. I've been there. I worked for government and did my public service for a very long time. Not for a very long time, for about 5 years. And during that time, I really bought into the hustle culture, and I surrounded myself with people who were about the hustle culture, the type that we would be texting each other at 2:00 in the morning because we're still working, being in the office at 4:00 in the morning, because that's what greatness is all about. So I just want to say that, hustle culture is not attractive. It's not good for you. And it will not get you to where you want to get. So remember that even though Beyonce has the same hours as you do in one day, she has an entire company of people working for her. So this idea of grinding all the time is fiction. And, evidence does show that it's ineffective and harmful. So at a high level, I think, it's a balance between your academics and personal priorities boiled down to a combination of reflexivity. So you really need to question assumptions to increase your self-awareness and intentional role of redefinition. And the most important thing is that it's not a one-time fix, but rather a cycle that we must engage in to continuously change our circumstances as our priorities evolve. The second thing around this, I'd say, pause and denormalize. Although some people may be fine with working long hours, taking time to think through these questions and acknowledging what the trade-offs are that you've made is helpful. If you're looking to, you know, rediscover alternative ways on, you know, working and living. So once you've increased your awareness of your current situation, examine how that situation makes you feel. I think you need to ask yourself, do you feel energized? Do you feel satisfied? Do you feel fulfilled? Or do you feel angry? Or do you feel resentful? Right? Around this once you've done this reflection of yourself and sort of denormalize, you know, the work hustle culture, once you've made that change, you really need to reflect and see, like, how does that make you feel, and would it be better for you going on? So let's see, the third thing I'd say in, you know, working around this balancing act is making sure that you reprioritize. So really just increasing your emotional awareness of the tools that you need to put into to put things into perspective and determine how your priorities need to be adjusted. So I'm really an asker of question and internalizing. So ask yourself, what am I willing to sacrifice, and for how long are you willing to sacrifice that? If you've been prioritizing play over academics, for example, why do you feel that it is important to prioritize your life in this way? Is it necessary? Is it really inevitable? You really need to reprioritize. And, you know, our priorities shift faster than our day-to-day time allocations. So, for example, you can still see yourself as a, you know, as an academic or as a young professional, but redefine that professional or academic role to be something inclusive of valued roles. And I mean, like, for instance, if somebody is working, redefining that means that, you know, you define yourself as a professional, but professionalism in your viewpoint also includes being able to balance your life as a parent or your life with your partner or a friend. And then the fourth thing, I think is the fourth thing that I'd want you to look at once you're trying to redefine this balancing act of yours, is just consider your alternatives. So, right, before jumping into solutions, make sure you reflect on the aspects of your work and life, and that could be different in order to better align your priorities, right? Are there components of your academics that you would like to see change? How much time would you spend, you know, with yourself versus your academic work? It's really, you know, an act of working smarter and not harder. And then finally, just implement. So once you've made those changes, once you've decided to make those changes, you know, people talk, psychologists or business psychologists talk about public change and private change. So public change is something that explicitly shifts your, for instance, your professor's expectations, such as, you know, taking on too much work when you shouldn't be, and demanding, so sorry, let me rephrase that. So, you know, public change is really making a change publicly. So telling your friends that perhaps, you know, you're not going to go to every social activity this year, this month, but you're going to break it. You're going to really just condense it into 3 or 4. So one of the things that I did specifically was making sure that I work really hard throughout the week, or really smart throughout the week, and then completely take weekends off for myself, right? So that's a public change, knowing that, you know, having to communicate with friends that I will not be showing up to, you know, the 10 bar dates that we have this week, but I will see you on the weekend. And then the private change is really in which you work privately. So how sort of your work patterns and how you study, without really necessarily having to change other people's expectations of you. So, okay, that was a mouthful, and I hope it made sense, but really just, make sure you avoid the hustle culture, you work smart and play smart, and just reprioritize how you navigate your academics versus your social life. Then I think I'll probably talk about mind, body, and soul rather than making a circle bigger. But mind, body, and soul really, I don't think I need to sort of break that down for you guys, but just wanted to share ClassPass.com. It's been a lifesaver for me. So ClassPass.com is sort of like a boutique studio online platform. And so what it does is that it's really smart. Going into a new country, you don't know what's available. You don't know what gyms cost. You don't know what type of activities are available for you that you can access that are close to you. So ClassPass is great because it's not, it's a platform for studios and big box gyms. And so what you could do with ClassPass is that you go onto their website, you obviously pay an amount, but that amount allows you to go to different classes in the city. And so you could literally walk, or you could really navigate around this platform and see what you want to do, where it is, and just use your credits on ClassPass to access those classes. And it's really fun. And it also sort of helps you, navigate around your comfort zone, discover new fitness styles. Because, going to a box gym and running or lifting weights is not the only way of working out. And ClassPass gives you a variety to choose from. And I'm pretty sure that it's available in the UK. I know that they launched it in London about 2 or 3 years ago. So I'm pretty sure that it might have, expanded a little bit more to the different parts that y'all are studying in. And yeah, so I think, we all know that, if you don't have, a healthy mind, body, and soul, that, you're pretty much a zombie. And so just getting out of that, exploring new things will be useful and great for you. And so the next thing I'd like to talk about is abundant learning. And this is really just getting yourself to taste test a lot of programs. This is the one time that you could do so much. You basically, in some cases, for those of you who have scholarships, you're getting paid to learn. So take the opportunity and learn as much as you can. And, this may be an obvious point, but we tend to, as students, we have a tendency to forget the importance of learning during our university years. And especially when you look at, being in the mindset of managing deadlines, trying to moderate your caffeine intake, and, dragging your heels to morning classes. So during your university years, you really have the chance to taste test different programs, learn from experts in diverse fields, and explore your passions to, tailor your academic and career paths. So again, just reiterating that learning during your university years doesn't have to be restricted to your classroom. So if there's a course in art history, and I don't know how it works in the UK, but I've had a completely American education from primary till my postgrad. And so I know from experiences of having tried to apply here at UNAM or in South Africa, is that sometimes the courses might be sort of structured and are very rigid. But in the US, for instance, or North American universities, that you really have a platform to choose your own classes and sort of look at what defines you most, what skills gaps that you have, and for you to be able to learn from those and grow on bettering those skills. So if the same applies to UK universities, if that course on art history conflicts with your schedule that you really wanted to do, consider, enrolling in digital platforms. I know edX is one that's pretty big, but, I've taken a few courses on topics that I would not have otherwise been able to fit into my schedule. But the fact that I'm there to learn and not just academics was an exciting opportunity for me. Let's see. So, along with taking advantage of numerous learning opportunities that are accessible to you.
Just as a caution, time is not really on your side at the moment.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. I'm almost done. So, just, where was I? Yeah, just take advantage to look at numerous learning opportunities that are accessible to you. Go to as many public lectures as possible, and don't be scared to venture out into programs that are not directly related to what you're doing, because trust me, they might have an information that will enrich your actual the actual program that you're learning. So everything is sort of interconnected and intertwined, and just don't forget that learning can take place outside of the classrooms as well. You'd be surprised how many opportunities there are for students to get involved on campus. I believe it would be the same, but your school government, university council, I guess, would be a great place to start looking at. And, I'm sure there are student counselors available to provide information on student-led associations and initiatives during orientation week. And so, the last one, which is the biggest one that I'd really want to emphasize to all of you, is to make sure that you make your circle bigger. So networking to your net worth, and whatever your net worth, however you describe your net worth, whether it is money, whether it is the circles that you're in, but really take the time to network your way into the places that you want to that you want to access. The reality is that, if you think college is about meeting new friends, going to classes, those are all important aspects of your college life, but they are not the only aspects. I think networking is one of the most important things you're probably going to do while you're college. And, it really just involves meeting the right people who can help you currently or in the future with your career goals. So if you consider that 85% of all jobs are found through networking, it's very important to network your way to your net worth. And also, I think I just want to emphasize that while you're doing this, make sure that you're doing it genuinely, right? Because people do pick up when you're networking purely for personal gain. I mean, that's exactly what we're doing, but you need to play it a little bit better and make sure that you're networking for the right reason and being able to also provide those same, personal gains to the people that you're networking with. Networking is a great way to also gain information about your industry. Networking with leaders and peers in that group helps you hear what the tips are, gain advice from others who are successful in that space. You can, even learn from important news and upcoming changes that may be happening within your field. So make sure you network. And then, it also helps you get in front of the people who are looking for the jobs that you're applying for. So build good relationships with the right people, and they may give you tips on future employment opportunities before they're announced in public. And so I think, Mavis, if you could just move on to the next slide. I've just sort of plugged these different, organizations. For all of you that are in the UK, the Africa Business Summit, the Oxford Conference are huge and important, or just really great networking resources. Not do they only have, career fairs linked to them, but they also have, students coming from different parts of the world, not just the country, to, to meet each other, make connections, make meaningful connections. So don't be shy. When we spoke about the, let's see if I can get my video on. So when we spoke about, budgeting, try and budget conferences into your budget. They're usually much cheaper for students. Obviously, at Harvard, so we have the Harvard Development Conference, but the Harvard Business Conference is also extremely big, and I think it might be the most expensive student-led conference, and that's about 150 US. And so I think since y'all working in pounds, it would be a bit cheaper for you, except, of course, for having to fly across the pond. But make use of opportunities to attend these conferences. I'm sure, the ones, London, the Africa Business Summit is huge, and has great speakers, and obviously great people attending these conferences for you to grow your network. And just remember that once you leave university and when you're applying, a lot of organizations like Facebook, Google, they don't really accept blind applications. They accept applications based on referrals. So I know Josh spoke about LinkedIn. Use LinkedIn, and so when you're applying for a certain company, LinkedIn tells you who your connects are in that company, and you reach out to them. So that's my spiel. It was quick, but I hope it made sense, and I hope it was helpful. Thank you all so much.